This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having the form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Friends, I stand before you this morning without a sermon. I stand before you this morning with a heavy heart and a heavy mind, but a steadfast spirit. I don't know if you realize this or not. I'm sure that you do. And if you don't, you're about to find out. We live in a world where wrong is right and where right is wrong. We live in a world where godliness is frowned upon and sin is glorified. We live in a world where good is bad and bad is good. And we live in a world where intelligence of the gospel is inferior to intelligence of the world. Friends, we're living in a dark time. We are living in dark times. And you know, this is not a thought with you about this, but I'm reminded of that one little scene in Harry Potter. If you follow that movie, you'll know where I'm talking from. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but it is entertaining to me, and it's a fictional book, so please don't think that I'm trying to promote witchcraft and wizardry, because I'll be have to honestly tell you that it's ridiculous to even make that argument. But there's a line in that movie and in that book where the minister of magic, he says, "These are dark times." And of all the things that happens in those movies, that one phrase, "these are dark times," resonates with me every single day. I don't know what it's going to take for people like me, for people like you, to stand up for what's right and not be afraid of what others might think, of what others might say. I don't know what it's going to take for you and for me to put forth the truth of the gospel in a world that says we are wasting our time and believing in a fairy tale. I once heard a televangelist say something that really kind of stuck to me, Lee. I was like, you don't preach the whole truth, but that right there says something. And his phrase was, let's say, and try to get this right. His phrase was, let's say that live our lives as if there is a God, and we live faithfully, and we die and find out there's not. But what if we live our life as if there is no God and die to find out there is? Now, when I first heard that, I was like, well, first of all, that's kind of a weak faith, if that's what you're basing it on, number one. But number two, there's a lot of truth in that. Weak faith or not. The world today is living as if there is not a God. The world today is living as if there is no standard, as if there is no morality, there is no right, there is no wrong. You do whatever you want to do, and you just keep doing that, and you'll be fine and dandy. I'm old enough to know, some of the ones who are younger than me may not, but I'm old enough to remember a phrase that used to come on Channel 3, WRCB, News Channel 3. Paul said it would be like this. You know whose words we just read? From 2 Timothy chapter 3. Paul. He said it would be like this. And he was led by the Holy Spirit to tell you and tell me, these things are going to be happening in this life. And what bothers me the most out of this whole thought process and how the thing is going in the world, what bothers me the most, it's not that they're actually happening. We know they're going to happen. What bothers me is not the fact that people are supporting those things. We know people are going to support those things. What bothers me is Christians won't take a stand against it. That's what bothers me. Whether we're afraid of it, whether we're scared to death that somebody may think that we are some holy roller and Bible thumper, you call me that and I'll say thank you. We're afraid people's going to label us as someone who is arrogant, someone who is above and haughty and high-minded and don't care and we don't love one another. Paul said it would be like this. Did you not hear what we just read? When he says that there will be despisers of those that are good. We got them. They're here and it's right now. And this is in no shape, form, or fashion a thought that's going to make us think that, well, the end is near. No, that's not what I'm saying, because we know that day and hour knoweth no man, not even the angels of heaven, my Father only. We know that. And I'm not saying, boy, we better get right now because it might not be long. These are signs that God is coming back. Friends, these are signs. This was written in the 1st century. And we're talking several hundred years before it was prophesied these things were going to happen. And some 2,000 years ago, guess what? He's writing these things to the people of the 1st century. It was happening then. These are not signs that are happening now. This is not new. These have been going on for a long time. So I'm not trying to say that the end is near and the things are signs and wonders that are happening in the world today are pointing toward the end. But I know this, every breath that we take and every second that ticks away is one that we cannot get back. That's why Paul says today is the day of salvation. Now is the time. Because if we're ready now, not worry about when that day comes. But if you're not ready now, you better be worried about when that day comes. I'm reminded of Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 5, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus has just said what we call the Beatitudes. And all the things that basically would be the foundation, if you will, those first few verses in the Sermon on the Mount, or the first few words that he said, was the foundation of Christianity. Go back and you study it and you'll see that. You will see about how our character should be and how we should respond to certain things that happen in this world. And after he says that, after he says those things, lays the foundation, he turns right around and he says in verse 13, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It's henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under the foot of men." And then he changes gears. "You're the light of the world." Wait a minute. Jesus says later that I am the light of the world. But here he's saying, you are the light of the world. Must be a contradiction, Gary. That's what the world will tell you. The same thing. Christ dwells in us. Christ is the light of the world. And we're not shining our own light, we're shining His. Come on, guys. Get with the program. Is that what people really believe? You're the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that are in the house. I can remember when we were going out to Arizona several years ago to do a VBS with a small congregation in Morenci, Arizona. We went out and we were driving. It was getting dark. I don't know if anybody's ever been out that way on I-40 going through Oklahoma. I'm sure some of you have. And it's flat. And everything looks the same. It's almost like as you're driving, it's like you've driven a ways and the slide starts over and you see the same thing again. And like, I just seen that cow 500 miles back. What's going on here? And I can remember it getting dark, and our stopping point was Clinton, Oklahoma. And it was getting dark, and we were looking ahead, and I was like, oh, I can see the lights of Oklahoma City. We're not that far away. An hour and a half later, I can see the lights of Oklahoma City. We're not that far away. And what seemed like another 3 hours, I see the lights. And I think back at that, I'm like, man, we've been driving we're bound to hit California here pretty soon. Because we can see the lights of Oklahoma City so far away, that huge city right in the heart of Oklahoma, and it's so flat, and light just carries. And I thought, that's okay. We're telling a suburban full of teenagers that we're with, because they're playing the how much further game. I thought they grew out of that. They don't. They're playing the how much further is it? I'm ready to go to sleep. Go to sleep. You're not driving. We're not that far. You can see the lights right up there. That glimmering ray of hope. And what seemed like an eternity later. And 3,175 questions of are we there yet later. And I look at that and I'm like, when I read the scripture of a city set on a hill cannot be hid, there was no denying on that trip that Oklahoma City laid in our wake, in our path. And as much as I would have tried to explain it away, I couldn't deny that light. I couldn't deny that. Matter of fact, you know what's odd? When the weather's right and the clouds are just right, and our house is out there close to Fall Creek Falls, can look to the south and a little east, and we can see the glow of little old Chattanooga on the clouds from the mountaintop. And I can try to explain that away. I can try to tell you that Chattanooga doesn't exist. But I cannot deny that light. Because you can see it. I cannot deny that Oklahoma City was ahead because I couldn't deny the light. No matter what I said. No matter what I did. Didn't change that light. And when we got there, you hear the phrase, our faith became our sight. Because we were right in the heart of that light. Having been there, having seen it, I still can't deny it. Even if I try. And the world today is doing the exact same thing. You mean to tell me that the people who are living outside of Christ do not see the light? Oh, they see it. They absolutely see it. You mean to tell me that the world outside the church does not, and sadly inside the church, does not see the truth and the standard that is set forth by God in His holy word? They see it. And as much as they try to deny it, and as much as they try to explain it away, friends, they cannot deny the light. They can see it. It's plain and simple. Now, they can be stubborn and bullheaded and not believe it. Sure. They can be stubborn and arrogant and prideful and say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Sometimes, y'all know how I am. Sometimes just for giggles, I post certain things on Facebook. I go fishing, Jamie, because I know who's going to see it. And I know who's going to be convicted. And I know who's going to reply. And it may be bad of me. It may be bad of me to feel this way. But I'm sitting back and I'm just like you sit in the pond, you throw a piece of bread out and you're waiting for the fish to bite it. I'm just throwing it out there. And I want you to bite it. Because, friends, I intend to set that hook. And when I set it, it don't matter how much you fight it. It don't matter how much you tug against. You come into the bank with me. Now I bring you up on the bank. And I'm going to talk to you for a minute. And then I'm going to let you go. That's what I do. I don't want to say that I get a rush from that. But I fish on Facebook a lot. Social media. And if you follow anything that I post, you've seen the same people that reply. You've probably read the threads. You probably got tired of it, turned it off. But it is funny to me at how people will sit there and deny with everything they have the standard, morals, and integrity that God puts forth in His Word. But deep down, you know, they know it's true. They can't deny it. And I'm sorry if you've there we got one little one in here. If you've taught him not to say this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use this word. But friends, there ain't nobody that stupid. I'm sorry. And I don't like that word either. But how else are we going to describe that? It's ridiculous. How can you not be intelligent? God gives us a brain that we can comprehend and study and learn and know. Friends, ain't nobody that dumb. When I was younger, they said the Bible was written on a 3rd grade reading level. 3rd grade. Now they say, well, it's like a 8th or 9th grade reading level. Friends, the Bible didn't change. The education standards changed. Sorry, Leanne. But that's not nothing to do with you. I know that. But friends, I'm telling you, the Bible didn't change. But our standards have. Well, now you've got to be 8th or 9th grade. Either way, I don't care if it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I don't care. That tells me that an elementary school student can understand the words of God. And we're talking about the old-fashioned King James Version with the these and the thous and all those things that were after it. They can understandeth it. And adults can't. We got a problem. And Paul said it would be like this. Jesus follows talking about that light. In verse 16, when he's talking to the people in attendance, understand he's talking to me and to you today too. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I truly hope that when the world looks at me and you, as much as they may try to slander us and belittle us and make us feel inferior, I truly hope they cannot deny the light that we're shining. Paul said it would be like this. You know, after he wrote what he wrote in chapter 3 of 2 Timothy, he continues that thought into chapter 4. And he tells young Timothy here in 2 Timothy chapter 4, I charge thee before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Here's what you do, Timothy. I just told you there's going to be a lot of things going wrong in the world. A lot of things that are happening that are contrary to what you believe, what you think, and what you know. It's going to hurt your feelings. It's going to bother you. It's going to be a thorn in your flesh. It's going to be a struggle. But here's what you do, Timothy. You preach the Word. Be in season, in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with all long-suffering and doctrine. Let me remind you what I've already told you. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust. They'll heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears. They'll turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. But you, Timothy, watch in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, and make full proof of your ministry. Paul said it would be like this. I hope and I pray, as we consider the state of the world, that we also consider ourselves. What do we do? What are we doing? Because I can tell you this, after telling you everything that we've talked about, if we think the rest of the world doesn't matter as long as I'm in my little bubble, and as long as I'm here at New Harmony Church of Christ, and I'm faithful, I don't care what the world does. If that's what you think, let me be the first to tell you that you're wrong. Because we can't take the light that God has given you and given me and put it under that bushel in this bubble. Because it's got to give light to everybody that's in the house. Oh, well, it does, Gary. It gives light to my kids and grandkids and my aunts and uncles, or those who are then in my house. I ain't talking about your house, folks. What's the house? The house of God? No. The house of the world. And when our lights are lit by Jesus Christ, no matter how horrible things are in the world, we go out into the world and we preach the gospel to every creature, and we are a light to them. And they can deny our actions. They can deny our motives. They can even try to discredit what we do and say. They can hurt our feelings. They can try to make a mockery of us. My friends, they can't deny that light. So what do? Just what Paul told Timothy to do here. You preach. You go. You make full proof of your ministry. And friends, if we do that, when the end of that day comes, then we, hopefully, Lord willing, can be just like Paul when he says, watch in all things, endure affliction, do the work of the evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. And then he goes right into his farewell. For I am now ready to be offered. The time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. And you know what, Timothy? Even though people have discredited me and tried to mock me as they have tried to mock Christ, and even though that I'm going to meet my death because I am preaching and teaching the truth, I've kept the faith. And they can take my body, but they cannot take my soul. I'll tell you a story of an experience that I had many years ago, and I think I've shared this with you close to when that happened. You can say back in the day. I was blessed and privileged to go to a conference and represent our Bledsoe County Relay for Life teams. Captains and board went to Nashville to a Relay for Life conference. People from all over the Mid-South, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, all the way down to Texas, Louisiana, the entire southeast and south part of the Mid-South region were represented there from everywhere. And I can remember as I was sitting there, the lights went off. And I was like, initially like everybody else, I said, well, power surge, storm, something, we don't know what's going on outside, lights went off. But everybody was kind of like, mumbling, and I'm like, what's going on? A light came on a podium on the far left side of the stage from our perspective. And a gentleman stood up to the podium and he began to speak about the cancer that he had been diagnosed with and how that treatments and American Cancer Society has helped him, and now that he is in remission, and told his victorious story. And everybody was like, yeah, that's awesome. That's why we relay. You hear that a lot if you're part of the Relay for Life. That's why we relay. Light went off. Another light come on over another podium. Just down from that one. A woman stepped up, told her journey of the cancer that she had fought, and because of the results of the testing and the things that Relay for Life had helped to fund, she was in remission. She was cancer-free. She was good. Yeah, that's why we relay. This happened all the way down. The sixth podium that lit up. You could hear movement, but you couldn't see anybody. And I was like, somebody forget to speak? What's going on? They brought a little stool out, and they set it behind the little podium. A little girl stepped up on it. You could see that much of her. And she began to speak about the things that she couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. And she was blind, you could tell. And she began to tell a story about how that a couple of years ago she was diagnosed with some massively aggressive cancer that was in her eyes. And how that they had to do treatments and hope to subside it, and it wouldn't. It kept growing and kept destroying everything that was in there, and she ended up having to have her eyes removed. And she tells this long story of what she had to endure. And this little 6, 7-year-old kid sitting there behind this podium, and she don't have any eyeballs, and you can tell because of the way the eyelids are. You can tell. And that little girl stood there in front of everybody, and she said, "You know what?" She said, "Cancer can take my eyes. Cancer can afflict my health. But cancer cannot take my spirit." She stepped down off that podium, and she walked around to the side of it where everybody can see, and she held up one finger, and she started singing, "This Little Light of Mine." I sat there and, I couldn't talk, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't breathe. But I was leaking from these two places. And then this one started leaking, because that's what city follows. And I sat there and I looked at that and I thought, that right there is Christianity in a whole, in a nutshell. Because Satan and sin is a cancer. And the world around us can take our physical bodies. The world around us can make an effort to crush our spirit. But there's one thing that the world cannot take from you and from me, and that's our light. Because that was given to us by the Almighty God. And it's only His to take. So I'm going to ask you, how bright is your light? You think about that while we stand and sing.